Welcome to another episode of Empowered. My name is Luis Carlos Estrada, and today I have a very special guest for episode 119, Dakota Lane. Welcome to Empowered. How are you doing today?
Good, man. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, we had planned this episode like a while ago, probably like 2 months ago, something like that. But I was getting busy with finals and stuff. But I really appreciate that you accept the invitation.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's good timing. I'm supposed to have a baby in 3 days, so we'll see how that
Congratulations.
happens. But yeah, thank you.
That's cool. That's cool. For people who don't know you, I would like to start like with you telling me about what you do, who you are, more about like who Dakota Lane is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I grew up in Denver, Colorado, born and raised here. And in high school, I was kind of raised in like a tumultuous environment. So just a lot of kind of dysfunction with my family and a lot of abuse and control, things like that. And so from there, it kind of launched me just on this path in life. I really found my faith early on, and that kind of became a big part of my life. I kind of just got to this point in my life where I was just like, man, if this is all life has to offer, like I don't want any part of it. And so I really kind of found my faith early on, and everybody has their own journey. But that was kind of where mine started. And then from there, after high school, I actually went to a Catholic seminary, so pretty wild. I was studying to be a priest, and then through a number of different things, I ended up kind of taking different directions and went to school in Ohio. But I got into fitness more in college actually, and then studied it a bit more and became a trainer. And then after college, I kind of put it on the back burner. When I was in grad school, I was getting my master's in leadership and wasn't really focused on it. I was working with high school kids and um, kind of trying to just impact lives. And people started asking me about fitness more and coaching, and so I kind of started on the side. And then by the time I was done with grad school, I just had enough work to go full time. So I just figured I would launch into it. And that was about 6 years ago now that I've been doing it. So started my business, Dakota Lane Fitness, pretty early on. And so yeah, essentially what I do is I create customized exercise nutrition plans for people all over the world and then teach them how to implement it. So I really started from the ground up.
Mm.
And I honestly didn't know where it would go. I just kind of started it. I just wanted to help people. I wanted
Yeah.
people to see that not only was there a good way to go about making a body transformation, but even more than that, which we'll get into. Like it's about so much more than just your body. I really wanted to create a big impact on people and really have people see that there was a much higher quality of life that was out there, um, and walk people with them through that journey. So yeah, started with a couple clients and then grew from there. And now I've had over 700 people, and I've had people in all 50 states, 21 countries, all seven continents. Believe it or not, I've had a client in Antarctica.
Hmm.
So all over the place. It's been really cool. And I get to help people of all ages, backgrounds, ethnicities, whatever every type of person, and kind of just walk with them as they pursue greatness, really is what it is. So, um, for me, my mission really about it, what like I said, was to really help people transform their lives from the inside out and achieve a higher quality of life is really what it came down to. So kind of started, growing up and just seeing that life was tough and it's tough for a lot of
Hmm.
people. And I wanted to walk with people through that, and help people to see that there's more to life than just kind of, mediocrity.
Yeah, I remember like some of the stuff that you just said, like you were sharing about it, like in the talk that you gave at church where I met you.
Mhm.
And I would like you to tell me more about how you started your fitness journey. What was your motivation? How everything started? Like I would like to touch on on the beginning of everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, pretty wild. So when I started in college, so basically my freshman year of college, I had always been an athlete, but I was really small. My whole life, I was extremely small. In high school, I weighed 81 pounds. I was 4'11", so just really small individual. And I always just I wanted to be bigger, but I just never really thought that it would be
Hmm.
possible. Well, in college, they had a brand new workout facility that was there. It was a really nice facility, and I had a lot of free time, so I figured, I might as well just go start working out and kind of seeing what it's about. And that's honestly where it started. I kind of started with the desire, to be honest, I really just kind of wanted to be noticed. I kind of wanted to just receive affirmation. It was much more about me. It was much more about my
Hmm.
body, how I looked. very quickly it turned into something so much more,
Mm-hmm.
and became about really developing a life of virtue, creating healthy habits, learning a life of discipline, and really trying to be the best that I can be. Um, Not just in fitness, but in every aspect of my life. And then really what I found is that my fitness became, as people say with recreation, it kind of became a recreation. Like it really began to transform my life, not just, my muscles or my body fat percentage, but really my mind, my heart, my soul. So it started there. But then the coaching aspect obviously kind of took a whole new experience because myself, I had got more and more into it, and and then
Mm-hmm.
I actually started competing myself in bodybuilding
Mm-hmm.
shows. So it kind of took it to another level. And then the coaching aspect was really cool because it was really able to take everything that I had learned myself and my passion, and then help other people to implement it who didn't think it was possible. So yeah, I mean, honestly, as you asked, like the reason why I started was I wanted to be noticed. But
Mm-hmm.
then the reason why I kept going was really because the quality of life that it provided, and the way that it was just transforming me, and then seeing that happen in other people's lives. And I can share more as we get into it, but seeing dads be able to go down a slide with their son for the first time, having a client who had rheumatoid arthritis who couldn't open a jar of pickles because her hands ached so much, be able to run marathons. People who never felt confident wearing a bathing suit before finally feeling confident in their clothes. It
Mm-hmm.
became about so much more. So yeah, motivation's hard. Motivation comes and
Mm-hmm.
goes. It's always fleeting. Sometimes you have it, sometimes you don't.
Mm-hmm.
But as the saying goes now, like discipline is more important than
Yeah.
motivation. So for me, it was really about cultivating a life of habits. I had a client last week, and he asked me, Dakota, you've been doing this for 10 years now. How do you stay so motivated to keep going every single day?
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him, I said, how long have you been working at your job? And he's like, well, I've had a job since I was, 16. He's 32. And I said, well, what keeps you going to your job every day? Do you like your job? And he was like, not particularly. And I was like, well, what keeps you going? He was like, well, I have to make money. And I was like, right, but what does money provide for you? And ultimately, money provides a quality of life. You have to
Mm-hmm.
buy food, clothes, rent, a house, whatever. It provides a level of quality of life. For me, I see fitness, nutrition, a healthy lifestyle the exact same. It provides a quality of life. So for me, the same way that somebody goes to work when they don't want to is the same thing for me of like, even if I don't want to, it doesn't matter. It's non-negotiable. I have to
Mm-hmm.
show up every single day because I want a certain quality of life. And in order to
Mm-hmm.
achieve that, I have to put in the behavior and the action. So for me, motivation came and went. When I started, I just wanted to have big arms. I wanted to be big, like
Mm-hmm.
most guys, they just want to be big, muscular guys. Um, and then, eventually I far surpassed my original goal, and I realized that it doesn't matter how much muscle you can accumulate. It doesn't matter, what body you can achieve. It's never going to fully satisfy you because it's not what we're made for. There's something much greater that we're made for. Um, and so once I surpassed my original goal, then it got to the point where I was like, okay, it's not just about my body. I've gotten the attention that doesn't satisfy. I look the way I wanted to look. That doesn't satisfy.
Mm-hmm.
So it became about something so much more. And that's what I go back to, the quality of life, being able to just live a quality that I want, to be able to be disciplined, hardworking, healthy, to be able to provide for my family, to be able to be active with my kids, to be able to age well, all of that stuff. So that's a little bit about kind of an overview of kind of
Mm-hmm.
where I started, why, and the initial kind of intention.
Yeah, I can relate with that because I remember like when I was in middle school, no, my first semester of high school. Or yeah, let's start with middle school. So during these 3 years, I was passing like through a lot, especially because my sister passed away. She was fighting cancer at that time,
Mm,
and
wow.
my self-esteem went super down. I was feeling like super insecure. Like I have always been like big, but I was like it was more like emotional. And I
Mm,
remember like during these times, like I wouldn't hang out with friends. I wouldn't talk like to any girls or stuff like that, just because like I was feeling like very insecure about everything. And I remember
mm,
like when I was still playing baseball though. But then when I started high school, during my first semester, I was feeling the same. And then I remember like in December 2014 that I was like, I need to make a change right now if I want to make it to professional baseball. So
Mm.
literally during winter break of 2014 to start 2015, I started to change everything. I started to change like my habits. I would show up every day. I was the first guy who would be like in the baseball field, and I was the last guy who would leave the baseball field just because I was doing like extra conditioning and stuff like that. But I think like this was the reason why was kind of like different than yours, because you were doing it like to be noticed, and I was doing it like to escape from something, you
Yeah.
know. So I think like sometimes, I mean, both are like different reasons, but I would say that I also kind of like wanted to be noticed because like I didn't have like any attention from the coaches or from like my teammates, especially because like I mean I was very fat, and then when I was starting like with this process, I ended up losing like 25 to 30 pounds during that year. I was like at my best, like physical wise. And then I was seeing like the improvements in the field. And then the critiques started, like everyone was like, hey, are you in drugs or something? Why are you so thin? Just like they were just joking, you know. But for me, I was doing that to escape from like the feelings that I had
Yeah.
for everything that I had to pass with my sister. When she passed away,
Hmm.
has been like the hardest thing that I have had to overcome like in my life. And then
Mm.
escaping like by showing up in the baseball field, by working out at a gym and stuff like that. I would say like probably at some point of your life you wanted to escape from something, or how was it for you?
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing your story. Yeah, I think it's similar. I think a lot of us go to different outlets, right, to try to deal with things in life. We all go through hard stuff, and I think how you deal with things says a lot about who you are. When you go through something hard, the reality is that as I tell people, you can either let it make you bitter or you can let it make you better. Sometimes it's both, right? Like when your sister passed, there's so much grief and anger and questioning why and how could this happen. You could easily go down a spiral, and you did for a bit. Um, but thankfully, you found like a new avenue, and you started to use that energy to make you better. I think we all go through things similar to that. I know the gym is like that for a lot of people. I have a lot of clients who will tell you straight up that the gym saved their life several times.
Mhm.
Um, that it was like that one thing that was consistent that would pull them out of like their dark moments. So yeah, I think for me, it still has been that, and I don't know if I would use necessarily the word escape per se. I think escape might have like a negative connotation of like you're running
Yeah.
away, but I think for me, it's more so. It's like it's where I go to process. It's where I go to cope. Um, so it's kind of instead of like you turning to substances or alcohol or whatever it may be, it's like a healthy outlet of trying to like take all that energy and put it somewhere. So yeah, I
Mhm.
agree. I think the gym for me, it still is like there's times where if I have a bad day or if I'm going through something, like it's just a place where I can go to just like kind of just decompress. And
Mhm.
which is funny because a lot of people see the gym as a place of like it's a chore, like it takes a lot of work. And it does, but it's also when you do it, it's just a very natural high. And same thing with sports like
Uh-huh.
running or baseball, like there's something just like about throwing a ball or just like hitting a ball over and over that's like kind of therapeutic. So I think for me, for you, it's like not even necessarily escape, but it's the way we cope with things. And that's how we are as humans because
Mhm.
we have a body, and that's why we tend towards bodily things like, but we also have a soul, which is important to
Mhm.
recognize because you can't necessarily affect one without the other. And you think about it with depression, like when people are really depressed and sad and don't want to do anything, like it affects our body. We usually end up gaining weight. It can really affect our health. On the flip side, when we start to become really healthy and disciplined, it affects our personality, our mood. We're more energized, we're more positive, we're more eager. There's more zeal for life. So, yeah, I think like I said, it can make you bitter or better. And for me, training has really become kind of an outlet where I'm able to help just
Mhm.
kind of process through life. I'm able to really enter in and make it a prayer, make it about more than just like lifting weights and training my muscles, but make it about
Mhm.
something that's kind of transforming, which for you like was baseball.
Yeah, no, yeah, I definitely understand that. And what you're saying, like about the soul, of course, like it's a super important part of ourselves, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And how you say like you have been able like to improve like your soul, your heart, your brain by taking advantage of the gym or like your healthy habits.
Yeah. So if I had to like summarize it in a theme, what I would say is self mastery leads to self gift. And here's what I mean by that. Self mastery would be, living a life of habits where you take control of your appetites. A lot of people
Mhm.
live their life where they're constantly just controlled by fleeting desires. They want to eat pizza, they go eat pizza. They don't want to work out, so they don't work out. They want to go
Mhm.
drink, so they drink. We're just, a lot of people are very compulsive in their desires. Self mastery would be where you take control of that, self control, self
Mhm.
mastery. You become the master of yourself. So you say, I want to eat pizza, but I'm not going to eat pizza today because I have a goal. Or for you,
Mhm.
I don't really want to go hit more balls for baseball today, but I have a goal, so I'm going to do it anyways. So you're able
Mhm.
to start to take control of yourself. Now, it can stop there. You can simply stop and just become a really disciplined person and just be like, just very dialed in and practice, and
Mhm.
that's fine. Or you can make it something more. And that's what I would say self mastery leads to self gift. And what I mean by that is
Mhm.
that self mastery is makes you better able to give of yourself. So for me, in my heart, my soul, as we were talking about, what I learned through fitness was that when I was able to better control my desires for little things or push myself past, pain in the gym, it made it easier to do that in bigger things. So, I was able to better control, temperance or prudence and making good decisions, avoiding bad
Mhm.
decisions. But if somebody can't put down a slice of pizza, what's going to make them able to really control themselves? Let's say if they're in a marriage and they become tempted by another girl, what's going to make them have self control not to just go and cheat? Or if they're,
Mhm.
what's going to make somebody not just go drink alcohol all the time? So the self mastery began to affect my life in other areas that were, in my opinion, more important, um, to the point where now I'm better able to give myself, because as the saying goes, you can't give what you don't have.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to give yourself, you have to possess yourself. In order to possess yourself, you have to learn self control. So
Mhm.
it's really interesting. So many people who are so successful, if you look at their lives, like a lot of them, they live very disciplined, structured lives. A lot of very successful businessmen, entrepreneurs, CEOs, they live very disciplined lives, but they also have usually time for themselves, whether it's reading, self reflection, meditation, prayer, exercise, whatever it may be. They're usually very well rounded. And that's what can be, really attractive about these people is like, not only are they very successful business people or speakers, entrepreneurs, but they're very successful humans. Like they
Mhm.
just work really well as a human being and taking care of themselves. So for me, again, it's not just about my body.
Mhm.
It becomes about so much more because the ways that I impact my body impact my soul. And again, like you think about something like stress. Stress is not a material thing. You can't grab it. Um, but it can really affect us. It can make us break
Mhm.
out in acne. It can make our hair turn gray. It can make us cause weight gain because it influences our hormones. So a non-material thing like stress impacts our body. So in the same way, if you flip it on the positive, if you start to treat your body the right way, it's going to impact your soul in a positive way. So yeah, it's
Mhm.
been really cool. And not only in my own life, but now I get to see that in all of my clients' lives.
Yeah.
And even, people who come to me and their only goal is I just want to look better or lose weight. That maybe is
Mhm.
where they start, but usually along the way, it ends up becoming about so much more. And they really
Mhm.
learn like, wow, I'm a better employee. I work better. My memory is better. My brain is sharper. I can
Mhm.
focus more. My sleep is better. So all of those things impact so many other aspects of your life. If your
Mhm.
car has a flat tire, everything else is working right. But if you have one flat tire, it's not going to drive right. You can't drive it,
Mhm.
even if you have a perfect engine. So it's the same thing in our life. If everything might be working perfectly, but if you're not taking care of your health, if you have that flat tire, everything's not going to work the way that it should be or could be at the highest degree.
Wow. That was great. There was like something that you said that you cannot give what you cannot have. And I think that has a lot to do, for example, with relationships or when it comes like to performing a
Mm-hmm.
job or like trying to perform at your best, for example, in baseball or something like that. So for example, in baseball, is like I cannot give what I can have. So, for example, if I'm not gonna be doing like my reps, if I'm not gonna be like hitting the gym, it's like why am I expecting to perform great at a game, right? Or for
Mhm.
example, when it comes to relationships, how would you say that that affected you? I mean, in a positive way, because like during your journey, obviously, let's think 5 or 10 years ago, you were not at your prime as you are right now. So you probably were trying to find like this person, like for a relationship, like your wife in this case. How would you say like that impacted you and your wife's lives in a positive way because you were like taking care of yourself so you can give more to her in this case?
That's a great question. And there certainly is a lot of positive. There's also negative too, which we can get to that. But as far as like journeying through that, a lot of people train themselves because they want to use other people. But as far as the positives go, um, yeah, I think it was really important for me to have in a relationship somebody else who was driven and who was disciplined and motivated. Because to me, it wasn't just about a girl having a good body. Um, it's about the fact that if you're able to have that self control, it's going to speak so much more about that person.
Mhm.
If I'm going to be in a relationship or have a family with somebody, I want to know that they're going to be able to take care of themselves, that they're going to have that self mastery, that they're going to be able to make
Mhm.
good decisions, to be able to work hard. And, typically, if you're living a healthy lifestyle, all of those things are going to be accounted for. So,
Mhm.
yeah, for me, it's been a direct correlation of learning that self control. When I was single, going through the process to now, there's a lot of times that I have to do things that I might not necessarily want to do. Let's say you ask many times to like, hey, can you just put your dish in the sink, or can you wash your dish when you're done with it? And you could ask over and over, and if you could bicker about it, or I could just say, oh, I'll just wash it for her. Or I'll go out of my way to like, oh, she forgot her phone upstairs. I'll go run up and grab it. Because I can do hard things. I'm trained this way. Like I
Mhm.
can sacrifice myself because I've learned
Yeah.
how to, put aside my own desires. So it's obviously a balance. It doesn't mean that you just have to let somebody walk all over you, but when it comes to love, it's really important to note that love is a choice. Love is
Mhm.
not a feeling that you get when you just like really like something. It's a choice. It's when you
Mhm.
will the good of another. So to will something, you have to choose it. You have to choose it daily. There's times that you're not going to want to, but you have to continue to show up. And so training
Mhm.
in whatever aspect teaches you that habit of like, yeah, I don't want to go to the gym today. I don't want to eat this healthy food, but I still do because I know this is what's good for me. And this is going to
Yeah.
be what's going to help me to reach my goal. So it's the same thing in my marriage. It's the same thing in a business. There's
Mhm.
many things that you'll have to do or that you should do that you might not want to do. And as you train yourself, you learn that life of discipline is going to lead to more freedom. Because if not, if you don't have that discipline, what happens is you end up feeling like you're kind of like enslaved. You feel
Yeah.
like you have to do all these things all the time. And I constantly have to pick up after my wife, or I constantly have to do this, or constantly have to do that. And it can be like a chore. Whereas if you are used to the life of discipline, which leads to freedom, I get to do that. I get to sacrifice myself because it's what's good. I love to do it. I love to make myself better for other
Mhm.
people, to be the best employee, the best boss, the best teacher, husband, coach, whatever it may be.
Mhm.
And that life of discipline helps you to become better in whatever aspect it is that you're doing.
Was there like any point during your transformation? I mean, yeah, during your journey that you started to set higher standards for other people, or was it always yourself? Because I mean, I'm asking you these questions because, for example, when I know that I'm doing my best, when I'm like waking up early, when I'm going to the gym, when I'm showing up to everything, when I'm doing like the right thing, I'm like, for example, if I'm going to take a girl on a date, I'm gonna be like, I want someone who has like higher standards for their
Mm.
lives as well, you know. So did it
Yeah.
happen to you at some point?
Yeah. I mean, that happened like naturally. I wouldn't say necessarily as far as like physical goes. Obviously physical is a part of it, but I don't it for me it wasn't a point where I was like, oh well, I'm a fitness coach, so I expect to be with a girl who's a
Yeah.
fitness model. It wasn't like that for me. It was more so like I want to live a healthy lifestyle and take care of myself, and I want somebody else who's going to prioritize that. So even for other people, like for my clients, um, I understand like the struggles that people have. Like it's not just as easy as saying like just work harder, just show up more. Like that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't work for a lot of people. It's really difficult. So I think through my process I've learned a lot of compassion and empathy for
Mm-hmm.
people. So yeah, I'll say that I have high standards, but I also understand that it's not as easy. Like I might
Uh-huh.
have the ability to just like push through and I can just like grit down and work hard. Some people just don't have that yet. And it takes a lot of effort and they have a lot of questions. And it's like they might need a little more encouragement, a little bit more hand holding, and that's okay. And everybody's at a different point in their journey. So I think for me, it's not necessarily about I have higher standards for people. It's more so that I have a higher standard for what I know that you can do. Like I
Mm-hmm.
see the potential in people, and so I see what you can achieve. And that's what I like to instill in people because they might come to me and they might not even think that it's possible. They're just like, Dakota, I
Yeah.
want to work with you, but I don't think I'll succeed at all. And I want to try to instill in them at least the hope, at least the desire that they can be more. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it's not that, people, when they come to me, I don't expect them to have like a certain work ethic or anything, because I know that that's
Yeah.
not always the case. For me, I want people to recognize that they have more potential than they might think they have. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, totally. And how do you keep yourself like humble? Because like I know there's some point like where you're like, wow, I'm at my prime. Like you see yourself in the mirror and you feel satisfied. You see like I'm at my best, I'm at my prime. How do you stay humble? Because it should be hard at some point, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, humility is an interesting thing. A lot of people think of humility as like meekness or shyness. They think like
Yeah.
if somebody says, "Oh, good game," you say, "Oh, no, 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 it wasn't a good game." That's not humility. Humility is
Uh-huh.
recognizing reality. And so what I mean by that is I recognize that I've developed a business, that I've created this body, that I, built this
Mm-hmm.
body, I've done all these things, and I recognize that, and that's great, and I'm very
Mm-hmm.
confident and proud of that. But I also know that, um, you know, I don't even give myself the gift of breath. Like there's something else holding me into
Mm-hmm.
existence. Like the fact that I even have the gift of health is a gift. I have other clients who are or people that I know who are sick. They have chronic illness. They might have missing a leg or have injuries, and they don't have the ability to do that. So you keep it in perspective, and you become more grateful for it. So it's like you
Mm-hmm.
recognize what you have. If you're a good athlete, if you're the best baseball player ever, it's okay to be like, yeah, on stats, like I'm the greatest ever. But also, I know what it took to get here.
Mm-hmm.
I also know that even these other people, if they don't have the same stats, it doesn't mean they're any less than me.
Mm-hmm.
We're all human beings. Like so, in that way, we're still all equal. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, as far as humility goes, like I was in the gym yesterday, and there was a lot of high school kids in the gym. I was on the treadmill, and there was a
Mm-hmm.
guy benching a kid. He didn't have a spotter, and he went up and struggled with a rep. And then I was like, if he goes down one more time, he's not come back up. And he went down, and he starts going up, and he stopped, and he didn't have a spotter, and he was like, just stop there. And so I ran off the treadmill, and I went over and I grabbed the bar, and he was, you could tell he was like kind of embarrassed. But the thing is, I was like, I've been there. Like I have
Uh-huh.
been in your shoes and been the guy who's struggling to get it up, and somebody runs and helps me out. I know what that's like. I know what it's
Yeah.
like to start off. And so for me, it's like if you forget where you started off and what you had to go through to get to where you are, then yeah, you won't be humble. You'll be cocky and you'll be like, I'm better
Mm-hmm.
than other people. But you forget that all it takes is one injury or one
Mm-hmm.
thing to happen, and you could lose it all. Um,
Uh-huh.
and also you were in the same position as those people starting off. Like everybody starts, somewhere. And so that for me is how I stay humble, if you will, is like I recognize what I have, and I
Mm-hmm.
recognize that I have something to teach people, that I have a lot of experience, that I'm good at what I do in my business. But I also, I don't see that as like, oh, something to brag or be proud of. It's really more
Mm-hmm.
I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I've had the
Mm-hmm.
experiences that I have to share with other people to help them to become better. And knowing that I was also there at some point.
Yeah, I really appreciate like that comment, especially when you were saying about some people get confused with what humility means, and I think like many people have been in that point, and I can include myself on that. Like when you're doing something great, you don't want to receive that compliment just so people don't think you're cocky. But at the same time, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
for example, if I don't know, last semester I won 2 awards in the College of Business, and I was like,
Yeah, I saw that.
wow, oh, thank you.
That's awesome.
So yeah, that was pretty cool. But the thing is like, I didn't want to have like the attention because I was like, I don't want like people like to relate me just with that, you know? And then I remember like, I mean, they posted like in social media. I mean, I made a post as well. And then like sometimes I would be like walking around like in this building or in the college of business, and people would be like, "Hey, congrats, Luis! I saw like this award. Oh, thank you, I appreciate it," or something like that. Like I would take it because it's like they are saying it like from their heart. You know, it's not like, "Oh,
Yeah.
Luis is just taking it too far." No, it's just like, "Oh, thank you, I appreciate it," and that was it. You know, but like for example, like at work or like other places, I would never be like, "Hey, you gotta help me with this because I won this award," or "Hey, you gotta," you know,
Yeah.
it's just like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's different, like the way you were explaining it. But many people kind of like struggle when it comes to taking compliments, and
Hmm.
I don't know, like I feel like that can probably be related with low self-esteem. I'm not sure because it's
Yeah.
like for example, if I see a girl and I'm like, "Hey, you look very cute today," if they say, "Oh, thank you," nice. But if they say, "No, I look terrible today," or something like that, like that means something, you know, like probably they are
Hmm.
not like happy with themselves. And I don't know. I just wanted to tell you that.
No, definitely. Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it's important to I think we should spend more time being proud of ourselves. I think we don't do
Hmm.
that enough. I think there's people always focus on don't be cocky, don't be like no, like
Hmm.
if you do something good, be proud of yourself. You worked really hard
Yeah.
and you achieved those awards. If that just speaks to who you are and your work ethic and your discipline and so like that's admirable. And
Hmm.
again, it doesn't mean that that's everything that you are. Like
Uh-huh.
no, that and also like you know for anybody, it doesn't mean that you have to upplay it and like, oh, I'm so proud, but like it's good to acknowledge, but also to
Hmm.
know that like you received that gift. Like the gift to be able to do that in your brain, like there were so many people in the course of your life who have invested in you, even from elementary school teachers who taught you how to
Hmm.
talk. Like it took a lot of people, a lot of time, energy, effort to get you to the place where you could perform to achieve those awards. So
Hmm.
when we recognize that, we know, hey, it's really not about me. For a girl, it's like, hey, you look really cute today. Some people are born and they're very physically appealing.
Hmm.
Other people aren't as physically appealing, in the
Hmm.
same way. And so for a girl, if she's really pretty, it's like you didn't do anything necessarily to do that. Like your
Uh-huh.
your parents made you. God made you. Like that's a gift. So you can
Yeah.
receive it. In the same way, like when somebody works hard or performs, they have a talent. It's like, yes, I accomplished that, but it wasn't just me. There's a lot of other things that go into it. So yeah, it's
Hmm.
important to recognize that. And in business, there can be two types of CEOs or
Hmm.
entrepreneurs. The one who's um, just so driven on money and success and it's all about me and I'm going to create this, look what I built. Or it's somebody who says, I have a passion, I have an idea and I want to help people. And yeah,
Hmm.
I'm very successful and I am a millionaire or whatever, but look at all the people that I've helped. And it was because of so many people who helped me along the way that I was able to help all these other people. So it's just a different perspective.
Yeah. Moving into another topic, like something that like we wanted to talk about is when people sexualize bodies. How do you see
Yeah.
that when it comes? Because like you're super strong, you're surrounded by strong people, you're also helping way more people like to get stronger and stuff like that. What do you think about this?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's a very common thing in our culture.
Hmm.
It's what we would call like a utilitarianism, which is basically
Yeah.
where you use people as a means to an end. So,
Hmm.
hookups. A hookup is that you're using somebody for pleasure for yourself. It's not
Hmm.
actually about that person. It's really about yourself. Um,
Hmm.
and it happens all the time. Whether it's like sex or whether it's money. And it doesn't necessarily have to be bad. Obviously, like a
Hmm.
business, they use their employees to provide a service, but in that way, it should be both ways. Like the employee provides a service, I provide you compensation through money, and it's mutual. Whereas in our culture now in the gym, you can see it all the time, especially with men. Sadly, like if a girl walks into the gym and yeah, maybe girls wear certain outfits that provoke it, but still, a girl
Hmm.
walks by and every guy is looking at them like if
Hmm.
a Ferrari drives by. And I think it's important to note that like we're a human being is so much more than a Ferrari. A Ferrari is beautiful. It's nice to look at. A human being has so much more complexity to it in the fact that how we're made, the dignity that we have as a human. So for somebody to reduce another person to an object by looking at them in a certain way, it really speaks more to that person. That person's just
Mm-hmm.
shallow. Or maybe they've never been taught. Maybe they're ignorant and they don't understand. But obviously in the fitness industry, it happens all the time, which is easy, obviously, because we build our
Mm-hmm.
body to look a certain way and it looks great. And it's easy to forget there's a person behind that body. There's something more to that. So yeah, the fitness industry is really not good in that category.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of perpetuates it. And in the gym, we see it a lot. But it's really sad because human beings
Mm-hmm.
are so much more than just a body to be used. They really are, something to be cherished, something to behold. They're just amazing in their complexity and their beauty. And it's okay to recognize beauty. Like I can see a woman
Mm-hmm.
and say, wow, that's very attractive, beautiful. But then it doesn't mean that I need to use that for myself. You can
Mm-hmm.
recognize the beauty of it, but you don't have to use it. So yeah, it's a sad thing that it happens. And I would say in my own journey in fitness, like there were certainly times in early on, especially where, I was like, oh, I want to get big and attractive and then I can get more girls. And there was
Mm-hmm.
times where, I would go down that path and every time it would just feel so shallow and so empty.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there's something in us, the way we were created, that is just more than that. It's not the way we were
Yeah.
made to be. And some people live like that perpetually, and they're constantly chasing the next high, the next
Mm-hmm.
raise in their salary, the next girl, the next car, whatever it may be. And yeah, you can end up wasting a lot of years missing out on a lot of beautiful things.
Do you think like that happens more from men to women or from women to men? Because like I would say like from men to women happens way more often, but I have also seen like girls on that aspect as well, you know?
Yeah, no, it definitely happens more from men to women. But it certainly happens from women to men. I mean, I think in general, men and women were created a bit differently. Men are a bit
Yeah.
more tangible. We're typically more you know, uh, like we work with our hands, more visual.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that women can't be, but and then women typically are more like intuitive, more empathetic, more
Mm-hmm.
emotional, more nurturing, caring. Again, it's not this stereotype. It's a
Mm-hmm.
generality, but
Yeah.
so I think in that way, men typically are more lured by looks. There's a saying
Mm-hmm.
that people say men give emotion to get sex, and women give sex to get emotion. So,
Mm-hmm.
like men sometimes like, oh, we can do the sweet talk or we can do this or that, and we're trying to get the pleasure. Women sometimes like they don't necessarily want the pleasure; they want the intimacy, the affirmation. And
Yeah.
again, it can go both ways, but I think in general, I see it more for men. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, like I just think whether or not it happens one way or the other, I think men should take the example, and take the initiative to be a
Mm-hmm.
leader in that category, because typically, like the way that a man goes is a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times the way that the women may follow. A woman who sets a high standard, she's not going to have anything to do with those guys, and that's just usually the
Uh-huh.
way it is. And sometimes a woman over time like will maybe lower her standard for the guy, and it's sad. Like the men should rise up
Mm-hmm.
and meet that standard. So yeah, it's a tough thing, and I unfortunately I see it so many times in men of just like guys just living very shallow lives based off pleasure. But yeah, it happens both ways.
And how do you think like we can use our bodies to glorify God? To glorify God?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's kind of what I've been speaking about this whole time. Really, in
Yeah.
the way that we're created, we're made for something so much more. So
Mm-hmm.
somebody may ask me, well, if you're gonna die, your body's gonna pass away. So why need to work out? Why do you need to work out and make it look better?
Uh-huh.
Well, honestly, as I mentioned, like our bodies are going to affect our soul. So
Mm-hmm.
the way we build virtue is through our bodies. You can't just like sit there and if you're trying to grow in temperance, let's say, temperance would mean the ability to have like self-control, either to say yes to a good thing or no to a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you're trying to grow in temperance, I could sit here and pray and I could just say, I pray for temperance and for the gift of temperance. And then I walk into a party and there's pizza and I eat it. So the way we grow virtue is by action in our body. It's by going to a party where they have pizza and you're hungry and you say, no, I'm not gonna have that because I don't want to have that. I want to be healthy,
Uh-huh.
whatever. Um, so it's through that our body that we learn virtue. So that's why it's so important for our soul. Also, the way we glorify God in our body is that we offer our bodies as a sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is that what we do in our bodies, first of all, our body it's a gift. Like I mentioned, it's a temple, as the Bible says. And if you want to take care of the temple, there's ways that it's made to be taken care of and to be treated to perform to the best of its
Mm-hmm.
ability. So in order to glorify God with your body, people may ask me like, well, isn't that vain of working out and looking so good?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that bad to look that like that? I would say the opposite. I would say if you have a beautiful temple, or let's say if the Queen of England was going to come and visit America, and let's say, like, would you take her to a dirty McDonald's? Like, is that where you would have her come in, or would you bring her into like the White House or a really elegant, you know,
Mm-hmm.
uh, hall or a big assembly theater? Of course, because the person, you know, dictates what should the surroundings. So for us, it's like God gave us the temple of our body. God is indwelling inside of us in the
Mm-hmm.
way we were created. So why not make our body the best that we can in order to glorify Him? We're made in His image and likeness. Well, if we're super overweight and lazy and eating all the time and never exercising, what does that say about the image and the likeness? So for
Mm-hmm.
me, in my workouts, like I try to offer my workouts as a prayer. I try to make them about more than just myself, but make them intentional, make them about somebody else, so that I can draw it out of just a selfish desire to look better and make it about glorifying God through my intentionality. So yeah, there's many different ways to
Mm-hmm.
glorify God. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be working out in the gym 6 days a week,
Mm-hmm.
but I do think that we have an obligation to take care of our body because of the gift that we've been given.
Wow. I mean, that resonates with me because like one of the reasons why I'm trying to go to a Newman Center kind of often. I mean, I wish I can say that I go very often, but I don't. Is because I'm trying to like improve my relationship with God. I mean, when I was younger, like I grew up like in a Catholic family. I would always be
Mm.
like at church every Sunday to mass, or like I would like hang out with my parents like in retreats, in events, in everywhere. And then when my sister was
Mm.
facing cancer, and then when she passed away, like I was not mad with God at all. I was like understanding like everything will happen for a reason, that it was part of His plan. And then it's easier for me to say this in English because like whenever I record a podcast in Spanish, I don't want my family like to understand. So it's the first time that I share this like in a podcast, and it's funny like actually because I was not peace with God at all when that happened. Probably my parents were. I was 13 at that time. Actually, in 4 days, it's gonna be her 10th anniversary in heaven.
Wow.
So that's a good time to say it right now.
Yeah.
And the thing is that time passed, and let's say that happened in January 2013. So 2013, 2014, 2015, probably even 2016, I was like super close to God. I had a really good relationship with God. I published a book about my sister's story, everything that happened, the way that God helped us throughout the process. And then
Mm.
I started like sharing like not like a surprise prize, but it was more like, oh yeah, this is what happened in my family. This is my testimony. I want to go like to this youth group to share everything. So I would finish that until early 2019, late 2018, stuff like that. But then I was kind of like, I want something else. Like I'm getting like tired. I still like now that I'm like more conscious because I'm like getting older. I mean, not getting older, but I mean like I'm not a child, or I'm not a
Mhm.
teenager anymore. Like so I have been like dealing with that since a while, like trying like to improve my relationship with God again because I'm sorry, I'm like peace with God right now. I still like don't understand a lot of stuff. Some stuff that I would see like at church back home do not make sense to me. So yeah, that's what I was asking you these questions, and the way you were saying like you offer your workouts to God, you offer these like to something else. That kind of makes a lot of sense. And I mean, I always work out, like I'm always at the gym or almost like at a field, like hitting some baseballs or practicing with my team. But like now that you say that, kind of like resonates with me because right now I can see like my 1 hour and a half or my 2 hour workout at the gym, like offering that to God. Like I always like to listen to Christian music. The thing is like I would stop doing it like just to get more like into the mood like with rock or something else. But I'm like right now it can be like a good time for me to connect with God again. I can use that gym as an excuse to connect with God. I think that will work out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, I think it's okay to be mad at God. It's okay to have questions and to see, like you said, things in your church that don't make sense. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's normal and natural. And I think that's actually better. I think it's better to go through those periods of rockiness and questioning than
Mm-hmm.
to just like never question it at all and just go through the motions.
Mm-hmm.
Because and if that's the case, you just stay lukewarm. There's no
Mm-hmm.
there's no commitment, there's no zeal, there's no making it your own. All it is just, yeah, it's whatever. I just do this because so I think it's important to go through those periods where you question,
Mm-hmm.
why am I Catholic? Why do I believe in God? Is there God?
Mm-hmm.
Like what's the purpose of my life? And to really wrestle with those. I can promise you God's big enough to handle it.
Uh-huh.
He'll be fine. He'll be fine. So it's important, I think, for us to wrestle with that and to connect with God in ways that maybe we're not traditionally taught. Kind of like I
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, like in the gym. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be, doing something so structured. The fact that we're created in our body and soul by God in his image, just by that in its very nature, when we act with our body and
Mm-hmm.
disciplining ourselves, like it's very easy for me to enter into a prayer. Like I'm so thankful for the ability to train my body,
Mm-hmm.
for the fact that I even have like the way that my body can operate in order to function, to cope with things. Like it's a really beautiful organism. And so you see something like the fragility of life, how life can be so short and it's so fragile. It really is a
Mm-hmm.
gift. And it really makes you reconsider, like, yeah, muscles are nice. It's nice to look good, but there's something more. There's something more to it. And that for me is where prayer comes in, where it becomes about something more. And for my clients as well, like even clients I have who are atheists, they don't believe in God or different religion, Muslim
Yeah.
or Buddhist or whatever. The principle is still the same, and they all experience it the same, where when they like journey through this process they begin to realize like there's something more here. It's not just going to
Mm-hmm.
satisfy me to look good. I think it's important to have that dialogue with yourself and
Mm-hmm.
start to explore that of like what else is there out there.
Yeah, because it's been like a while since that started happening, probably like since 2020, something like that. But like 2021, I went to the Newman Center a couple times. 2022, I went like probably 7 times, something like that. But right now, it's like in 3 weeks, once I'm free, like with some meetings that I have every Thursday, I'm gonna be able to start going again. So in 3 weeks from now, I will start like putting like more commitment on it, and also like using my workouts like as a way, like also like as you say, like to glorify God, to also like improve my connection with Him. It's gonna be more like I'm gonna start like seeing my workouts as an excuse to connect with Him. And what is funny is like, I mean, I do this podcast like for people who listen to it. I always enjoy recording podcasts, but like it's kind of doesn't happen very often. Like when I learn something super great from an episode, or when I'm gonna change something in my life just from talking
Yeah.
to one of my guests in the podcast. So I really appreciate like this conversation because like you're inspiring me to do the change. You know.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I think for me, like I mentioned before, like I've been in your shoes also. Like
Mm-hmm.
I've been there before where I'm mad at God. And my mom's had cancer 3 times, and I grew up in a really abusive household, and my dad is a really severe alcoholic to this day. And there's a lot of things that you just wonder, like, why is it this way? Why does it have to be this way?
Yeah.
For me, prayer is really the thing that I always go back to. And that's where fitness has become so healing for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Again, people can ask me about vanity, or they can say, your body's going to pass away. Why would you invest in it? For me, there's so much freedom in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like anything. Of course, you can become vain or cocky, like we were talking about with humility. But
Mm-hmm.
does that mean that just because there's the possibility of something negative, that I should negate all the positive?
Uh
If somebody
huh.
has the opportunity to become a millionaire and they say no, because what if I just become so obsessed with money? Well, yeah, you could, but what if you become successful and become so generous and you sponsor a
Mm-hmm.
whole school in Africa or something? There. So yeah, there could be a negative there, but that
Yeah.
doesn't mean that just because there's the potential of the negative, you should throw out the potential of the positive. So for me, the beauty that I've experienced in
Mm-hmm.
working out far outweighs any vanity or shallowness that exists within the fitness world. So yeah, it's been a beautiful journey of learning that self mastery and being able to take self control and for, like you mentioned, just for me to really connect with God on a very basic level, like
Mm-hmm.
my human body, being able to do that. And people will run marathons and they dedicate it to somebody else, or people will write a book and at the beginning they'll say, in memory of XYZ, or for movies, people
Mm-hmm.
dedicate movies to people. So why not dedicate a workout, every single day?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'll have clients, I'll have them text somebody if they want accountability, hey, text your aunt who is really struggling. Text them and say, hey, I just want to let you know, like, tomorrow I'm going to go work out and I'm going to dedicate it for you. Do you have any intentions that I can dedicate for this? Or, do you
Mm-hmm.
have any prayer intentions or whatever? And then it's like in my prayer, it's like I pray that I have the strength to honor my workout, to get through my workout, so that this person will have the strength to endure their own challenges. So it becomes about something so much more. And I think that's the beauty of our body.
Mm-hmm.
Scripture has so many analogies about running the good race, or competing well to earn the crown of victory, or
Mm-hmm.
offering your body as a living sacrifice. Like, it's built within our nature to train, to work, to dedicate, to be disciplined.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you can do it in the wrong way, where you serve yourself, you become your own God, or you can offer it as a sacrifice, which is you do have to work, but then you're offering it up. So it becomes about something
Mm-hmm.
different.
No, yeah, that's very cool. I want to start like implementing that like after recording this episode.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
the way that I finish all the episodes of this podcast for people who are listening, I always ask my guests to ask me questions. So I already asked you like a lot of questions. Ask me 2 or 3 questions about whatever you want. If a previous guest had already asked this question, you gotta choose another one. So
Okay. I would say number one would be, what would be your vision or your purpose for your podcast? Like, what is your hope for it, your dream?
I would say like I want to be, as we were talking about it like at the beginning, I would say noticed, because like I'm putting like a lot of effort. I'm trying like to get to connect with great people. So I really appreciate like you're here today. And also like whenever I see the podcast on the way I started it, it's like I'm seeing the improvement, because at the beginning it was only like one microphone and my voice. And then it was like I started bringing some people, and then I started including the camera, and then I started like to include the little clips in Instagram or Facebook. And then I started to bring like famous people, couple millionaires, like people from Fox Sports, ESPN, or MLB teams or stuff like that. And for me, it was kind of like it started becoming like a motivation to connect with people that I want to have a conversation with. Even though it's 45 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour and a half, whatever, for me, it's like very special to be able to connect with these people, to humanize them a little bit more. Because, for example, like some of the topics that we're talking about today were like from our hearts. Or, for example,
Hmm.
like when I was a child, I remember that I was watching this concert of this band called Rojo, like Red. And they
Hmm.
are like a Christian band that were very successful, like from 2000 to 2012, and then they separated, and then they go together again, like in 2018. And I remember that I was 7 or 8 years old when I was watching them for the first time, um, in a video, in a DVD, and I was like, no matter what, at some point of my life, I'm gonna have a conversation with a singer. And I ended up meeting him in 2016 in a concert. He was just like, "Hey, hi, this is Lisa. Can I take a picture with you?" And then in 2018, I gave him the book that I published, but it was like a
Wow.
10-minute conversation. But it was like at least he's gonna remind me for something. And then last year in May, I know the drummer of that band, and I told him like, "Hey, I would like to interview him. I would like to have him in my podcast." He's like, "Okay, I'm pretty sure like he reminds you. I'm gonna send him a text, and if he says yes, I'm gonna give you his phone number." So he said
Wow.
yes. And then the drummer gave me his phone number. So I was saying to him, like, he'll be like sending me voice notes and stuff. We were like trying to coordinate the podcast. I waited like for 4 or 5 months. Like the first
Wow.
conversation was in May, like just to coordinate everything. But then they were gonna have concerts in LA, in New York. They were gonna be
Yeah.
traveling in a tour. And then we ended up recording on September, yeah, like mid-September. It was like almost 2 hours of conversation in that podcast. So for
Wow.
me, it was like I was able to humanize him, like to be able to talk to him like at a way more personal level. And for me, it was more like I'm literally accomplishing a dream of myself when I
Yeah.
was 7 years old. So for me, it was very
Yeah.
special. Or when I have had professional baseball players that I grew up like watching them like in the stadium, in TV or stuff like that. And now that I have their phone numbers and that I can talk to them, like the last episode, actually, the episode of this week was with a professional player. His name is Luis Alfonso Garcia, and he's the fifth home run leader on all times in the Mexican Winter League. And I
Wow.
used to imitate him. Like when I was a child, I would like
Wow.
stand up like him, like in the batter
Yeah.
box, and then like now that we're like friends, it's kind of like wow because I never thought about it. He was one of my first guests of the podcast that are famous, and I have his phone number. We recorded, and then
Mm.
that was in March 2021. And something that was super special this winter is that I went back home, and he's in Florida right now, but he went back home too, in the same hometown where I live. And I was in the baseball field, and he used to play for that team. He's retired now. And I was just standing up, like watching the game. And then someone says, "Hey, Luis." And I look, and it was him. And I was like, I
Wow.
can't believe that he recognized me, like just for being in my podcast. That he's like the same day, like probably 1 hour before, we were texting each other because we were gonna get breakfast 2 days after. But I didn't know that he was in the stadium because he didn't tell me and I didn't
Yeah.
tell him. And it was so funny because he was like, he telling me Luis, and I was like, wow. And then I gave him like a big hug because it's like first time
Yeah.
ever that I see him in person, not
Oh,
not as a
wow.
fan, but like as a friend.
Yeah.
And then 2 days after, I went to this restaurant and he called me. He was like, "Hey Luis, my car just stopped working. Like I'm in the middle of the street." Like it was like an electric car, and then it just stopped working. It was something related to the battery, and I was like, "Okay, I'll be there like in 10 minutes to help you." So I was helping him like for 2 hours, and then
Wow.
I was super happy because I was talking to him.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, so
No, that's
that
really cool.
it's a vision of the podcast, I would say, like just connecting with people that I admire, and at the same time, like helping all these people who are listening to learn something. Because, for example, just in this episode, I already learned a lot of things. I have my notes right here.
Yeah.
And that's some stuff that I'm gonna use for myself because of that conversation that I have with you. But like people who are listening, I'm pretty sure that they learn something as well. If they use it, great for them. But if they don't, it's like I don't want to sound selfish, but I'm already learning something.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
that
No,
that's
that's
the way I
awesome.
see it as well. Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's cool. No, that's really cool that you found that success. And I think people appreciate just, yeah, like you said, humanizing people and just kind of seeing a different perspective. Used to seeing from people, hearing their thoughts, hearing how their brain works, their heart works. So, yeah, I think that's really cool. Yeah, so I guess like the last question then only would be, um, yeah, I mean, not only the podcast, but I guess like in your life later on, like whether it's baseball or business, like
Mm-hmm.
what would be your hope as far as like if you were remembered for something or like the impact that you want to leave on people, um what would you say is like your if you had to like give yourself a brand for yourself like Luis's life, what would you want people to remember you for?
Wow, what a question. I'm not sure 100%, but I would say as a hard worker because like no matter what, I'm always trying to work hard as I can. Sometimes I have like a quote that I always tell myself that you gotta do stuff that you don't like so you can do stuff that you like. So for example, if you ask me, do you love school? Do you love taking classes? Do you love doing assignments? I'm not gonna say yes. I'm not gonna say yes. Like I don't enjoy like doing an assignment. I don't enjoy like doing a quiz super stressed or doing a test. But I know this is the stuff that probably I don't like. Not that I don't like, but I don't love it. So probably I don't like that, but I know that once I'm done with school, something else is gonna happen. I'm gonna find probably my dream job, and then I'm gonna enjoy it. So that's something. And also like a quote that I always mention this quote in this podcast. I don't know why, but like it always leads to this conversation. The thing that I was telling you about, he has a quote that has resonated with me. Like when I just decided to move to the US, that says, um, empieza donde estás, empieza con lo que tienes. Start where you are and start with what you have. So
Hmm.
probably we're starting something, we're starting our fitness journey, or we're starting school, university, and probably we're not at our prime. we got to start from scratch sometimes with what we have. If we don't have money, let's work a little. No matter if, yeah, let's don't care if it's not too much. Like we're gonna use it at some point. Or for example, like in the fitness journey, probably at the beginning, I'm fat. But then like in 2 months, I'm not gonna be that fat. And then like in 1 year, I'm gonna be healthy and I'm gonna be fit. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Hopefully you
Yeah.
can still hear me. My headphone died.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think that's yeah, what more could we want, right? Than for people to be inspired to see our pursuit of greatness and want to pursue greatness themselves. I really like that quote. I think it's important to start where you are, start with what you have. Like you don't have to, we all start somewhere. You don't have to have everything
Mm-hmm.
set up and ready. It's like for your podcast, it's like you have one microphone. Okay. For your fitness journey, it's like you can just go for walks, like drink some more water, start with whatever. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
important to remember you don't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
But that even the most successful people, they had to start with just one action, something small.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Apple wasn't created overnight. Disney wasn't created overnight. It was, just one person with an idea that they implemented. And then you see the way it can impact people. So, even more than those companies, it's like we hope to be people who inspire people to live lives who are selfless, caring, and inspire others to pursue their greatness. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, Dakota, I really appreciate your time. Like, thank you for like all the lessons like you share with me and with my audience. And for people who are listening, please don't forget to share this podcast in your Instagram stories. You can find me as at Luis Carlos Estrada and the number two. Dakota, people can find you as Dakota Line Fitness, right?
Yep, Dakota Lane Fitness, and then my website is just dakotalanefitness.com.
All right. So thank you so much again, Dakota, and thank you everyone who listened to this episode. We'll send you a big hug, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.